Hello and welcome back to the Argyle CFO Summit, the modern CFO's new role and responsibilities. My name is Michael with Argyle. It's great to have everyone with us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat and we will address your questions at the end of the session. And now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our moderator. Peter McKenzie, Chief Financial Officer and Corporate Director with Anticipa Real Estate. We're excited to have Peter and our panelists with us for a panel discussion titled Modern CFOs and the Finance Evolution. Peter, thank you so much for being here today. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, Michael, and good afternoon, everyone. A real pleasure to be here. I'm the moderator for this session. I'm really excited to be here for what I hope will be a very interactive and lively debate. I have three wonderful CFOs with me who I'm going to introduce in a second. But before we kick off, I just want to say this is live, so please ask questions in the chat as we go. I would like to see those questions and actually try and put them into the conversation we're going to have. I think that'd be more interesting for those of you watching, and I think it'd be more interesting for the panelists as well. So a little bit more about me. I'm the corporate director and CFO at a real estate company called Anticipa Real Estate in Spain. We look after about 40,000 residential properties here, and we're owned by Blackstone, the world's largest PE firm. And prior to that, I spent 20 years at Citigroup, where I worked across mainly EMEA, between London, Lisbon, Madrid, and Barcelona. I had a regional role as well. And I took several CFO roles in different parts of the banking world, from corporate banking, investment banking, across to consumer and cards banking. And I originally started with PwC. So that's my background. I'm going to ask each of my friends here, my panelists, to introduce themselves as well. And as I have Kyra on my right, can I start with you, Kyra? Can you introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure, I'm Kyra Coker. I'm the CFO and company integrator for National Roofing Partners. We're a commercial roofing company headquartered out of Coppell, Texas, which is just outside of Dallas. And we provide kind of a single source roofing solution for regional and national clients to kind of have that one number to call for roofing needs. I've been in finance for just over 20 years, specifically construction finance for about 17 years, and happy to be here.
Thank you very much. Good to have you as well, Kyra. Next up, Jim, if I can ask you to introduce yourself as well.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jim Altman. I'm the CFO for Welch Equipment in Denver, Colorado. It's where we're headquartered. We are a material handling company, provide racking, conveyor systems, forklifts, and all the material handling type needs in the Rocky Mountain region. We have offices in Salt Lake City and in Albuquerque, as well as our headquarters here in Colorado. And I'm in my 38th year of my career. Have had about 15 years in public accounting with some stints in with an SEC registrant, and just excited to be here today.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jim. And finally, Alonso, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Alonso Ramos. I started my career with Colgate-Palmolive. I did 23 years with them in different countries, but mostly in the US, working in different divisions. The last 6 years, I have been CFO of different companies. First, I was in healthcare. Most recently, I was the CFO of a manufacturing company, the division for the US of headquartered in Spain. And I just moved to a different CFO role, which is for a global CFO for a manufacturing company in the precise molding plastic industry. So thanks very much for the opportunity and looking forward to participate.
Thank you, Alonso. Okay, we're going to start with the first question. So we're looking at a very wide topic today, which is the modern CFO, the evolution of the sort of finance function, the CFO role within that function. So I'm going to start with you, Kyra, if I may, and ask you, again, a wide question here. So within your organization, how has the role of CFO developed and changed, and how has the finance function evolved?
I think for the most part, what you've seen transpire over the last 10 years or so is that the CFO has become less of a finance person and more of just an overall business partner in driving the business. For our company specifically, the role of the CFO is very much encompassing the entire company and kind of the way the operations work and how we all integrate with each other. And I think that over the years, it's transformed because we as finance leaders see so much of the business and you touch so much of it that you really are sometimes the most intimately involved with how everything works and operates together. And now the rest of the world's just kind of catching up to the idea that the CFO is much more than just finance.
Okay, so thank you, Kyra. And Jim, would you agree with that? Is that the same for you? How has the role of the CFO evolved in your organization and finance in general?
Yeah, I definitely echo with what Kyra said. I started my career in the 80s, and it was, this is right at the onset of computers. And what I remember auditing is most of the CFOs just really focused in on dialing in their travel and entertainment expenses and minor things that we would look at today. And I think in my company today, it's the CFO or the CEO and I that are looking to pull levers to make this company stand strong from a nimble balance sheet, so that we can absorb whatever direction that we're going to take on a strategic endeavor. And then also making sure that our overall direction makes sense for the company, not from just a financial perspective, but from an overall, do we have the right resources? Do we have the right buildings? Do we have the right channel partners? So it's a more holistic approach to managing the business, as Kyra said, a business partner, rather than just somebody who sits behind looking at spreadsheets and ticking and tying, and somebody who has to be out and involved with the other executives within the company.
Okay, thank you. So you both agree. I have to fire the same question to you, Alonso. How about yourself? Is it the same? Do you find that you as a CFO are more of a business partner? Is that how things have evolved for you?
Yes, I think what Kyra and Jim have said is that it's a traditional role that the CFO has played in many companies. They're more related to the accounting or the financial statements, manage cash flow, capital expenditures, this kind of things, especially the audits and taxes that were mentioned also took a lot of time. I think many of these things have evolved, and through technology, they're easier, still need to be done. But we have had a big impact on the evolution of technology on these areas. And we have more time, but at the same time, we have more new challenges because of the dynamic of today's business requires to act as a team players with the other functions in an organization. And finance sits right in a very strategic place, because it oversees the entire company and can play this role of this strategic role very well. Is the one to can help put all the pieces together with the rest of the organization and become true business partners, which is definitely the objective. Well, in general, I mean, there are many areas in which the CFOs get involved nowadays that in the past were not much of. It was more of a CEO or it was more board of directors, but nowadays they become very involved in evaluation of the processes that can help us grow the business, grow the profits. You see many CFOs involved in acquisition of companies, disbursements, maybe grow business through acquisition of customers, pricing strategies, product mix, and so on and so. I mean, the list is endless, but you see many examples of where the CFO is playing a more strategic role than before, and it's not just doing this kind of traditional type of role. So, get back to you, Peter.
Okay, no, I mean, I think you all agree that the role has definitely widened. You all mentioned the word sort of strategy, and I think sort of sitting at the very sort of top of the tree and making decisions within the company. Perhaps, but going back to that, because Jim, you mentioned specifically being a partner of the CEO in that strategic role. But are there any other areas that you feel that the CFO is moving into, apart from just being a strategic partner? Is the CFO taking on, or you, for example, taking on any other functions within the company?
Oh, let me provide some context to that question a little bit. I've been a high school football referee for 22 years, and currently my role, well, for the last 10, 12 years, I've been a crew chief, which that means I'm the guy who wears the white hat. I'm the one that gives the signals and gets booed when by the people when that's a call that people don't like. But what I found in as the longer I've got in officiating, and I think it really relates to what we're doing as chief, officers in our companies, is that and I like the title that Kyra has as a company integrator. I'm more of an integrator on the field where I'm not looking over, the back judge's field of vision and what is he looking at. But I am saying, okay, I'm pulling us all together, making sure that we have the right and the same sheet of music that we're all marching off of. So we're all headed toward the same goal. We have an hour or so pregame before a game, and we talk about how we're going to call X. What is our philosophy on personal fouls? And I think as we meet as a senior team in my company, we spend a lot of time. How are we going to deal with known contingencies that might hit us? Last year or a year ago, we had a supply chain disruption by one of our major suppliers, and the sales team actually went out and bought competitive units before they were all swallowed up. And now I think for most manufacturers in the forklift world, it's a 2-year lead time on forklifts. But the fact that we went out and swallowed up a bunch of ancillary brands in order for us to be able to meet our company demands, that is a part of a discussion that we've had to make sure that we're all in sync as an executive team to be able to react to the market conditions that present to us. And we go from, say, a 40% market share to more than 60% in our Rocky Mountain region. So I think when we look at the finance role as leaders, we're going to be more of that integrator and looking at various areas and say, how can we coach our team members, our peers on that senior executive boardroom and say, here's the things that we need to be concerned about, guys and ladies, and that are important for us to be successful if these particular challenges hit us. So we've got to be informed. We've got to be looking at what's happening in the world and how it might even drive negative consequences. I mean, none of us probably saw as big an impact that COVID had on us, but we could have been strategic in saying, okay, we have something that's coming now. We're going to learn our lesson from that, and we need to be prepared going forward. I think it's just us being a significant player and being a voice that, people are going to look to us for financial advice, but we also have to be the person that has to be able to give guidance and counsel and be that integrator throughout the company.
Okay, no, I love the sports analogy as well. So I think it works really well. So the sort of team player, really again fixing the strategy. So I think, Jim, you said that a couple of times. You very much your role. It sounds as though you're sort of next to your CEO and very involved in that sort of being aware of what's going on and having a response before things happen. So, and Kyra, what about you? Is that how you see your role now? Or do you actually take other functions under your wing, or is it more as Jim said, which is a sort of like a more of a coordination leadership role?
It's a little bit of both, very much the, strategy, integration, partnership side, but then also we now encompass human resources, IT, risk management. For our company, I also incorporate our service team falls underneath me. And I think it's kind of looking at it on a we almost take the business and split it up based on who's the right person to kind of manage that part of the business. And I've found over the years, whatever no one else wants kind of seems to end up with the CFO, right? Like the office management, the, all those little nuts and bolts that kind of just seem to fall underneath it. IT for me is a great example. I know it has to do with risk and it has to do with assets, but I'd be happy for someone else to take that part of the business. But that's it. It really is. It just kind of all encompasses. And you usually, if you're lucky, like I am, and it sounds, Jim, is you have a partner with the rest of your executive team, and you all work together and take your little pieces of the pie and operate those. But yeah, there's a lot that kind of falls into our world. And as I talk to other CFOs, they're faced with the same thing, right? Okay, I've got to figure out, I didn't know what this was, but it's in my world now. So let me figure it out. Technology being a huge piece of that, right? As a finance person, technology is not my favorite thing, but it definitely has become something that is a necessary evil to take us into the next part of business that we need.
Okay, no, very interesting. I think we have Jim talking a lot about the strategy side. You've mentioned, I love the way you say technology is a necessary evil. Yeah. It could be an enabler, you could think, or an evil. I'm a little bit like you. I also have an IT role now, and I'm not a tech person. So I think it's sometimes a little bit daunting. But I think that the CFO and technology these days does go hand in hand because of the obvious synergies between the two areas. And Alonso, I wanted to bring you in on that. Are you involved with the IT world? Is tech becoming a bigger part of your role as a sort of modern CFO?
Yes, most definitely it has been for a while. Then that I think it is part of the fact that now CFOs need to wear multiple hats, and sometimes it's HR, sometimes it's IT, sometimes it's legal, or many others. And IT is one of the most common ones. Sometimes it's actually formally part of the finance role. And I think the reason for it is that the finance can bring the perspective of how the impact of IT could have for the company. It could be in terms of upgrades of systems, in terms of spending or capital expenditures. It has to do a lot with the cyber attacks and the impact that it could have for the business. I've been in companies in which they have been subject to cyber attacks. They have been very costly. The only good news is that we have insurance for that, and that's also as well something that is quite important for us in finance to drive. We need to make sure that we have the proper insurance to cover for this in case it happens. At the same time, it becomes a solution by itself, because the insurance companies they force us, or it makes a mandate for us to implement many initiatives in order to avoid future attacks, and that by itself helps us to be better as well. And the other part is that in today's world, we see more scarcity of resources. It's difficult to find people. It's difficult to retain people, and the market becomes more and more competitive. And as such, the dependency on resources, it becomes also a kind of a risk by itself. Through the utilization of technology, we can also minimize a little bit this risk by implementing new technologies. Finance is a good example of it. In finance, you can implement a lot of technologies in cash management, in other areas, maybe FP&A. There's a lot right now out there. The list is endless, but these are things that could help us to translate activities, streamline processes, and make it less dependent on people. Maybe make it a little more the remote, or the things that could be centralized as well. There are many opportunities out there that could help us with the implementation of technology. Same goes for other areas. It really impacts all the areas. If I'm part of the manufacturing industry, I can tell you, like with the implementation of technology, and there's many wins that you can get into the production side that could really minimize, improves all your ratios, but also minimize the potential issues, and especially the high dependency on people as well. So it's I see finance like really a big leader on when it comes to technology, and it's a partnership really with IT, because IT can give you advice on technical things, but also finance can bring the overall perspective of the company and see how that how it was going to impact the whole financials of the company, how to minimize risk, and how to achieve efficiencies. So with working together, I think they can both achieve great things. Thank you.
I agree, and we've got some questions coming in. But before I jump to some questions, I think Jim, I'd like to hear your views, because you've mentioned the strategic element, but maybe the IT piece as well, the technology piece, because there's a lot of talk these days about autonomous finance and machine learning and artificial intelligence. And finance, I think, is one of the areas that people tend to think we can start to use that type of technology. I don't know if that's been the case for you, or how close you are to the tech guys, or whether that's something that you still keep at arm's length, if you can.
You know, a great question, Peter. You know, I came into this thing right at the in accounting, right when computers were starting to just hit the scene. The personal computer was introduced in the early 80s. I was just finishing up college, and as I've always had a bent toward technology, I know that's probably not the case for a half of the people that are in my age bracket, but I oversee the IT group here. I oversee the HR. So I have a full administrative function that's reporting to me, and so finance and accounting is just a piece of it. And I will tell you that AI is just, it's such a there's so many things that are available to us that I don't even think that we know what is even capable with the new fintech world that's out there. And I really believe what hinders us from being advanced in our use of technology is the kinds of ERP systems we're using. And I think I'm probably say that my peers on this panel probably get 20 people soliciting them for, hey, I got the latest and greatest AP automation software that you can use. I see Kyra smiling about that. And I'm like, okay, I know what kind of problem that causes me on the AR side. I'm not sure I want to dive into that, because my ERP system is so limited. And I think what we've got to do is advance our technology from being, our ERPs have to be less accounting oriented and more from a global solution provider. If I've got a customer, or if I've got a technician who is out working on a forklift, and he needs to be able to check through and say, this particular forklift needs 4 hours to, just like when you take your car into the dealership, that needs 4 hours to do this work, and it needs these parts, and that can automatically be emailed right into the client's office, and they can agree to do that and come back. And now we've got one trip to solve that customer's problem. We need to have ERP systems that are more geared toward customer solutions as opposed to finance and accounting solutions, because I think for 20 years now we've had it the other way around. So the more that we can advance AI on that kind of front, we as accountants should be able to adjust what's given to us, and we need to be adaptable so that we're customer solutions oriented rather than everything being built on a finance and accounting platform. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense to me. I think what you're saying, the perspective you've given is certainly true for me, and I think Kyra, I don't know about Alonso, but nodding as well. The ERP system is like a legacy system, far more based on books and records. And as you say, we need to be able to hook on AI type solutions. You need something that's far more customer oriented, or maybe just an ERP that's far has more functionality, where you can use some of this technology. And I agree, if you've got an old ERP or one that's purely focused on a sort of finance bookkeeping function, it's far harder to put some of these things into place. So I think that's very true. I'm going to go to you, Kyra, with on the back of what Jim's just said, but also using one of the questions from the audience, because I think it sort of links in quite nicely. Which there's a question here that says, how do you bring your executives into the role forward planning approach as opposed to the older models. So how do we move some of the executive team, I think they're trying to say, from this old view of what finance is doing into a sort of more modern rolling forecast, maybe using some of this technology to help us do that?
So, I think for me, I've been very blessed that I haven't really had to roll forward too much with my executive team. On my COO and CEO are very much open, right? So they want to know kind of what it's all about, but they're very open to new ideas and what it looks like. What we did, which I am finding very effective, is we actually created a technology task force within our company. And so kind of our role is a committee, if you will, that vets out any software changes, does testing and kind of go through that process. And then we will launch it out to the rest of the company as needed, depending on what it is. But that's allowed us an opportunity to be able to show other executives and other managers, hey, we've vetted this out. We've looked at different softwares. We've beta tested it ourselves to see how it would integrate with other systems. And now we're ready to present it to you. So it's not just a singular person saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. It's a group of people from different areas of the business with a common goal. And so we kind of present it in that nature. But, if I'm looking at like my board and I'm presenting to the board technology that I want funding for, if you will, as an example, then I need to be able to show what that return is. That's what they want to see, is if we invest in the time, the soft cost, and then the hard cost of it, what will that return to us? And sometimes, to Jim's point, it's almost an intangible. It's the value to the client, which for all of us, value to your client is intangible, but also highly needed in order to move forward. So I guess to answer your question, I haven't had to do a lot of persuasion, but to help with it, we have a task force. And then we also are always trying to bring into that what the return is, whatever metrics we can to show what the reason is, and try not to get distracted with squirrels, because there's so many different software packages out there, and some of them are really shiny and sound really good, but testing it to see will it work with your other systems is important. So
no, that's interesting, and I think you both, Jim and yourself, both mentioned the shiny packages, and we all get unsolicited communications asking us to look at these things, and maybe that's a reflection of the CFO's new role, right? We're being offered things that aren't even just accounting solutions, but very, very enterprise-wide solutions, and I think reflects maybe where we sit. So I think, Alonso, coming to you, I mean, what we've discussed a little bit here is the widening of the role of the CFO. We've specifically gone into sort of technology, but we've also discussed the fact that the CFO is very much a business partner. He's very much on the side of the CEO. He's very much strategic as well. Looking at these things, and Kyra just mentioned the customer-centric model. I think 20 years ago, the CFO would not have been so customer focused, and today, clearly we are. So, question for you is, in terms of the CFO, him or herself, so you being a CFO, what change do you think that means for the person that needs to be the CFO? Does that need a different skill set?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, I don't know the skill set, but a different mentality. The mentality should be completely different. It needs to be, well, first of all, it needs to be a person who is a leader of people. There are different leadership styles, but whatever style and depends. Sometimes I even change my style according to the situation in the company. I have moved from transformational leadership to servant leadership, but it requires adaptability. And by the leadership styles I have chosen, I have been very careful to understand that it relates a lot to how the CFO manages people and how the CFO positions himself or herself as a leader in the company. This is key because it's very different as it was before. During certain roles in which I have known in other companies or people that I have replaced, CFOs in the past, I hope in the past, tended to be a little more isolated or into their finance operation, and not much of a team partner, team player, which is essential now in today's business because of the dynamics of what's going on and the disruptions. We live in a changing world that is more unpredictable than ever. And that requires having a very close relationship with everybody in well, all the executives and the other members of the team as well, at all levels, pretty much. That's the other part that I want to stress, like is a different change on the mentality. One is to change the leadership style, make it more approachable, make it more a people's person. And the other thing is to be a relationship builder. Yesterday, or it was the night before, I was sitting precisely here in one of our locations with some of the customers who came to visit us and explore some possibilities to do business. That tells you like it's now is very different. The CFO needs to be conscious of all types of relationships internally in the organization and externally in the organization, and is not much as somebody who provides results or presents financial statements, but also way before it comes into that, and it comes from day one in the job, is a person who needs to build relationship with everybody, build relationship internally with their peers in the C-suite, with people, with the CEO. It needs to be a very close partner. I think that's pretty much what Jim was mentioning as well. And with everybody in the organization. And it's important to know the people here in the manufacturing environment. And I mean, I can tell you the number of plant tours and the number of people I know in the production floor. Like other CFOs didn't pretty much go into the plant much. In my case, I go there all the time. I can give the tour myself. If you come to my office, I can present you, take you through the plant, explain you how machines operate. I mean, there are technical things I don't know, but I can pretty much explain you how the production operates and what are the most important dynamics, the raw materials, what the people does, how the machines work, and many of the other metrics, because that's the role of the CFO nowadays. So I would say yes, it's a change, it's a big change on mentality. The CFO cannot afford continue to be in the isolated or within the finance function or kind of an approachable kind of role. It needs to be definitely a people's person with a leadership that invites people to come, that is approachable, and it is possible. And it's actually a person that is supposed to be enticing everybody in the organization to communicate and to be relationship between themselves. It should be like the liaison between the different departments. And that's the other part of the mentality. I mean, really be somebody open to be relationships and encourage other people to do the same.
Excellent. No, I think collaboration was the word I take away from that, and a very different CFO. I remember one of my early CFOs that I worked for was a complete sort of dragon. You were very scared to approach their office, and they protected the money, and they were like, no, they were Mr. and Mrs. No, the old CFO. I think now it's a different role, and it's a collaborative role, as you said. And I think both of the other CFOs here have also confirmed. So I think absolutely true. Very different mindset. And I'm going to go to one of the other questions, Jim. And I'm mindful of the fact that earlier you actually gave us a little bit of a mini case study. Apart from your footballing background or your coaching, the coaching you do, you mentioned how you looked for a solution with the CEO in a moment of a supply chain crisis. And one of the questions we have now is talking about the recession, which I think we're all. I'm not sure. Well, I know the UK, which is my home country, is officially in a recession. I'm not sure about the States, probably not yet, but maybe we all think it's coming. And the question is, how does the CFO prepare the company and its leadership for recession and lead through it? That's a difficult question to answer, but if you can give us your wisdom.
Sure. And when I saw this question pop up, I was really excited about this. I think really where it boils down to, with people in our position, is we have got to make our balance sheets extremely nimble. And I think what that does, and I'm really good. I really give a lot of context, I should say. I grew up in the Great Lakes area of the United States, and lots of snow. What I learned when I learned to drive in the snow, it was always said, give yourself lots of distance, stop between you and the person in front of you. And I mean, that's no different now when I live in Colorado, and we do get our share of snow, not as much as in the mountains, but having that braking distance is so important in our business environments. When I took over at this company 4 years ago as the CFO, I inherited a situation that was pretty difficult. We probably had maybe $300,000 left on our line of credit. Today, I can access $6.5 million of capital at any given time. And it's because we are driving down our reliance on external debt. We're really managing our receivables. We're looking at our payables terms and making sure that I think that I'm the only, and I will tell this to vendors, I'm the only company that's paying you within terms. We've got average days outstanding payables at 26, and then we have 15-day terms with some customers. And I think what that does is it gives us an opportunity to go to a vendor and say, look, I'm the only company that's paying you on terms. You got to give us your best deal. Yeah. Everybody else is asking me for 90-day terms. I'm paying you on terms. You need to do that. Having access to capital where we know that we can make that decision. If my sales team says, look, we've got to fill the pipeline with all these other forklifts, we're going to spend $1.5 million in commitments over the next 6 months. Can we do it? Say, absolutely. I have plenty of capital for you guys to do that. And we took care, and we met those that whole margin analysis that we did on that. It paid for itself. Our customers were able to be supplied at that point in time where our competitors were not. We gained 20 points in our market share. So it's being able to manage our balance sheets so that we're extremely nimble and being able to make those decisions and pull those levers whenever we can, and not having people have fear of if we do this in the middle of a financial crisis, is this going to put us over the edge? And the other thing, Peter, I'll tell you this is, I think I'm probably the most senior person on this panel today, but I remember the days of 21% mortgages in the early 80s. I don't think that the majority of our spenders, the Gen Zers, the millennials, have ever seen the kind of recession that I've lived through. And I think, it's still a spend economy. I don't know that it's a recession that I've ever seen in my lifetime or anybody else has seen. So I don't know that we can predict what we are going to be able to see through an economic downturn, but it also illustrates and accentuates the point that we need to be extremely nimble with our balance sheets.
Absolutely. No, I have a vague memory. I'm not probably a little bit younger than you, but I do remember the 80s. I think it proves that history repeats itself. That's one thing. And the second thing, I think, you're very right in the sense that CFOs need to be shoring up the balance sheet. Cash is king as well. Have access to liquidity always, because when a liquidity crunch comes, you're out of the game, no matter how profitable you may look on paper. And I think those things you mentioned are absolutely key and really good advice for the CFOs watching. So thank you for the advice. I don't know, Kyra, I think it's a worthy topic to ask you the same. What about in your business? How do you see, if you can see storm clouds coming, what are the sort of actions you're taking?
Yeah, I think Jim makes a great point, and that's something always continuing to do. But then on top of that is looking at our business and looking at historically, because that's where we can look for information. What do businesses spend their money on when there is a recession? Where do you have to still spend your money, right? So I may not replace my roof, for example, in the roofing industry, but I may want to do a little bit more to maintain it. And so we start looking at, from historical standpoint, we look back at 2008 or times like that when we hit recession, and look at other businesses and where they're spending their money, so that from a finance side, I can help my sales team understand where dollars are going to be spent. And we try to kind of forecast that so we can be proactive in approaching our clients with those relationship type environments and saying, hey, recession is probably coming. Let's plan together. Let's work through where you should spend your dollars. And so not only does that help from a relationship standpoint, but it also helps you both be smart on what you're doing. So that's what we've been really focusing on, is making sure that our sales team is equipped with programs like preventive maintenance and leak response and things like that to try to make their assets last longer. Because, you know, in the construction industry, which Jim is very familiar with too, people may stop building new quite as much, but they're going to still maintain and have to maintain what they have. And there's still going to be improvements. It's just something that doesn't stop moving even in a recession. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. And you spoke there again about talking to the business teams, understanding your business, the dynamics, and the need to plan.
Yes.
And I think here we're seeing some comment, apart from the strategic element of all the stuff we've been talking about, and the need.
You can't just close your eyes and pretend like it's not going to happen. You have to sit down and plan for it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You can't just wait for it to come. And I think that's a good point. And I think it dovetails very nicely into another one of the questions here, which I can fire to Alonso, which is to do with planning. And this question 4 on our chat, which is, what do you think is the biggest benchmark for planning performance for a CFO these days? A new modern CFO. What is the benchmark? What tells us, are we doing well or poorly?
Yes, I think it's a little bit to play the role of the CEO in somehow. I think it comes to the point to establish a strategic planning, and I think in that they could have the CFO should play a very close partnership with the CEO and figure out this together, at least lead the process. I think it's planning performance. I would say I don't know exactly what the question is looking for, but I can imagine that it talks about how you see the future and how you're gonna evaluate it and how you go, what are your expectations with it. I think it's for a long time, it's the budgets were the most important thing. The president took precedence. They were prepared annually, and there still are. And pretty much the company focused on that. And there was a strategic planning that it was a little more kind of overview, kind of a little more top line, and a little more fast, and with certain assumptions. And I think the way I see it is the other way around. Do your strategic planning first, and then work on your budget, because the changing situations that we have right now, the whole well, we have seen. I mean, the examples are endless. The disruption on the supply chain, transportation problems, maintaining people, finding people. The list goes on and on. The post-pandemic, and I mean, war in Europe, potential wars in other places. I mean, you become used that there's a new normal, in which the new normal is that anything could happen. And as just one saying, this is, you need to plan for it, and you need to have a plan B, in which you need to be able to react to whatever situation happens. So in that sense, I think we need to forget a little bit about the short term and plan a little more go more into strategic planning. And this is where the CFO and the CEO can work together and elaborate this plan, lead this plan with the rest of the C-suite and other executives, and make a plan 3 years, 5 years, and ask ourselves the same question, like what happens if this happens? What happens if this other thing happens? And how can we plan for that? And then bring it to a shorter period, and that will be your budget for the following year, and the kind of a short term, what things we know, what things we don't know, and how we can plan for it. But it's in function of a more long-term vision. And then follow up on that plan in a kind of a 90-day time frame, continuously following up on how are we doing against our budget, but how are we going against our strategic plan? Are we completely moving away from it? Do we need to course correct? So for me, that will be the benchmark for the CFO. I mean, understand that part, work in collaboration with the CEO and lead the entire organization to a more long-term and more strategic plan, and considering the opportunities, but also considering potential contingencies that can happen through time.
Okay, thank you. No, very interesting. I think we could debate for hours on planning and whether strategic plans, as you say, anything can happen, and how long a planning cycle should really be, or how often you update your plans. And I think there's a certain trend these days to have almost real-time planning, constant adjustments to plans, because things are just moving so fast. But thank you for the answer. Very, very interesting. I'm aware we've only got 4 minutes left. So what I'd like to do is just give you all like one last word. What I think it would be nice, given the fact we've spoken about this new CFO, this modern CFO that's strategic, that's collaborative, that's everywhere, really business oriented, together with the CEO and all the things we've mentioned. What would be maybe a word of advice to people watching, other CFOs, that you think you could give them, could help them in this new role? Kyra, can I start with you?
I would say don't be afraid to push the envelope a little bit. You know, as CFOs, sometimes we're very risk adverse, and I'm much in favor of that. But I think in order to set yourself apart, you have to be willing to push that envelope just a little bit. So that would be my advice to new finance leaders who aren't quite used to being involved in strategy.
Okay, so maybe stepping out of their comfort zone a bit, and getting out of the sort of typical finance role, and pushing that envelope. Okay, excellent. Alonso, sorry, what about yourself?
Yes. Thank you, Peter. And yes, I think the CFO is evolving into what I like to call, many people call it like that, operational CFO, more involved with the operations, with the strategy of the company. My word of advice is focus on your leadership style. Make sure that it's something that aligns with the company culture and makes people feel comfortable, and it promotes relationships. The CFO is not anymore an isolated agent in a company. It needs to be somebody that works in collaboration, it's a team player, builds relationship with at all levels, and encourage others to do the same. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. It all makes a lot of sense. Team player. You're the one who said team player the most, I think. And Jim, let me finish with you. If you can give us your advice.
Sure. You know, there's that old adage that says knowledge is power. And what I would say, let's do it a different way. Let's give away as much knowledge as we can. Let's invest in our teams. I mean, right now I'm looking at the last quarter of my career, and right now I'm spending as much time as I can building up those people who are coming behind me. And then we have to give away knowledge to our peers on the executive table, because if we don't give them that information, we can't hold them accountable for making those decisions. And so the more that we hold back to ourselves, the more that we just do a disservice to the company. And so, you know, investing in others and really driving home the development of our teams that are around us. And, you know, they say that a wooden bucket only holds as much water as that shortest wooden stave. So let's make those wooden staves pretty tall so that we can hold a ton of volume as a group and really accomplish some really cool stuff.
Excellent words. Excellent words. Sorry, Kyra, go on.
No, I just said good advice. I like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, excellent words to finish on. You know, empower your people, give them the information, share the information, let them grow. I think everyone said collaboration with the team. I think also making sure you build the team behind you. There was a question on succession planning we didn't get to, but I think it's absolutely vital that we, especially in this new role we all have, to build strong teams that support us and come through. So I'll leave it there. Thank you so much. It's been a really, really good panel. It's absolutely flown by the 50 minutes. I hope the people watching have felt the same. Thank you for all your advice and your good words. And Michael, I'm going to pass the baton back to you if I can.
Thank you so much, Peter. Jim, Kyra, Alonso, this was an excellent panel discussion. We appreciate it. I also want to thank everyone for joining us today for this fantastic session. Peter and the panel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.